Howdy, Sandy Sheriff here with another, that's not the sign for another installment of Sacrilegious Sunday. And as you can probably easily tell, we have both household guest appearances. I made that up on the fly completely by accident. I'm just saying. So, I've been getting this particular thought process a lot lately, so I decided to make and yes, I abruptly stopped signing. I decided to make a video specifically about this topic. And Cass will immediately make a goofy face into the camera, hopefully, as soon as I say what I'm talking about. Ember, will you get your schnozzoli out of the Anyway, so topic of conversation today. I'm going to try to, here we go. Open-mindedness. See, there we go. Open-mindedness versus closed-mindedness.
Oh my god.
Well, he's not going to help you very much.
Down. The Amber go.
I'm sorry, I couldn't resist that. So, I'm speaking from the viewpoint of someone who was raised for 25 years as a staunch, I mean, one of the most staunch versions of Christian that you could possibly be. The version of Christian that I was raised as believed an extremely strict set of rules, extremely strict set of doctrinal beliefs, the whole schmear.
Down.
But where things started getting a little bit awkward was even from a younger age. I noticed a few issues that I had no way to explain away or anything of that sort. One of them being, if you bring up a discrepancy issue to a Christian, you're going to be faced with a couple of different responses. Response number one would be that they would get incredulous. How could you possibly ask me that? How could you possibly point that out? Don't you have faith? I mean, me personally, not really. But even a person with faith still is going to have questions. The difference is that some people who have faith and have questions are just trained not to ask those questions and pretend like they don't have any. But in the back of their mind, they do have questions about what they believe. The second thing you're going to see is people who, they don't get incredulous, but they still say basically the same thing. They'll go, I thought you had faith. Or something like that. So you got the incredulous people, you got the people who are polite about it but still point out that you have to have faith. Then you got a third option, which is basically call you a bad Christian because you don't believe. Which is, again, the whole thing about faith. But it goes on a slightly different field. Instead of saying you don't have faith, they say you don't truly believe. So you're starting to see a little bit of the different versions of Christians that you might bump into. So with that being said, I wanted to try to explain how I know Christians to be, because I've run into a lot of different versions of them. So one version that you have is like, I know this is not actually what your religion is, but just for sake of illustration, let's pretend that this is the case. For the moment, we're going to pretend like Cass is a Catholic.
Ugh.
Be nice. We're going to pretend like Cass is a Catholic.
That's a Christian, though.
Some Christians don't think Catholics are Christians. Like the ones I grew up as don't think they are. Catholics are Christian according to the social term Christian, but that's a separate issue. So let's pretend that Cass is a Catholic and I'm a Baptist. They have different belief sets. That's very famously known. So what happens if Cass brings up an issue to me that is a legitimate issue? Like, for example, there's a verse where Jesus says something along the lines of, if you do not eat my flesh and drink my blood, you have no part in me, or something like that. It flashed across the screen while I was trying to quote it. So, with that being said, does that sound very similar to the Catholic beliefs? They believe that they are eating his flesh and drinking his blood. They have Bible to back up that belief. Now, Baptists will say stuff like, the Bible also says that he died once for all. And if the stuff turns into his body and his blood every single time they hold communion, then that means he's dying again. Going logically, I can't quite wrap my head around where they came up with that belief. I don't really... Okay, yeah. Let's just go with, okay, that's a little weird. So, here's the point I'm trying to make with this.
Is that when they make you eat crackers and drink grape juice?
Yeah, that's communion. So, here's the thing. The Catholic over here, there's two possibilities, generally speaking. The Catholic could be trying to debunk the religion of the Baptist. Or the Catholic could be genuinely curious what the Baptist viewpoint on this particular topic of communion is. That's the two general options. So, with that being said, what happens? Let's go with the second one, that the Catholic is genuinely curious. So what happens when the Baptist over here goes like this? It's just wrong. The Bible says this. What's wrong with you? You probably already know what my viewpoint on this is, but excuse me. If you can't be respectful enough of another person's religion to politely respond, like, for example, I could say, from my personal opinion, I don't completely see the logic in Jesus apparently making himself a humongous human being or regenerating his body incredibly fast so that all the Catholics across the globe can eat his flesh and drink his blood every time they have Mass or communion or whatever it is. I don't know if it's specifically when they have communion or if they do it every time they have Mass. I don't know. If you know the answer to that, could you please leave it down in the comment section down below? I would actually be very interested to know how that actually works. So, if the Baptist over here basically calls the Catholic out for just being flat out wrong.
So Baptists don't do that?
Don't do what?
Communion?
No, they do communion, but to them it's symbolic.
Oh.
Because the in the New Testament, the Lord's Supper, was Jesus using unleavened bread and grape juice as symbols, so they're copycatting him. Which is a little bit more realistic, because God is very symbolic. He likes doing pictures of stuff, but it still doesn't really make much sense, because, just face it doesn't make a whole lot of sense why he decided he was going to use illustrations like that. So basically, let me give you a very specific example. So, again, I'm using Cass as an example because it's convenient. So, we're going with a hypothetical situation here. Cass is 3 years old.
Google gaga.
Right. So, would you expect Cass to completely understand right versus wrong at 3 years old?
You don't know.
Pardon?
You don't know.
Oh. So there's a 50-50 shot that whatever's going on, Cass understands it, and there's a 50-50 shot that Cass doesn't get it. That's why parents have to teach kids right versus wrong as they grow, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if Cass doesn't truly understand right versus wrong, there are some things that kids just somehow inherently know is wrong. And I genuinely don't understand how that works. But some things, little Junior Cass over here does actually just inherently seem to know are wrong. But not everything. If little Junior Cass over here is just going through life in this partial understood and partial not understood system, what does that mean Cass is doing? Living, right?
Mm-hmm.
Human being who's living.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not going to name who it is. If the person is watching this video, they know exactly who I'm talking about. As an extremely staunch Christian, even more staunch than I was when I was growing up, believed that this kid over here, because they are not actively, intentionally serving God, that everything this kid does is serving the devil.
Oh, Satan.
I would stop it. I would venture to guess that little Junior Cass over here probably doesn't even fully understand the concept of who Satan is from that religion. How would you say that Junior Cass is serving Satan when they probably don't know who Satan is? They don't completely understand right versus wrong. They're just a human. No. You are one or you are the other. Well, here's the problem. I know a lot of kids, a lot of grown-ups, a lot of grown-ups who act like kids, a lot of kids who act like grown-ups, so on. Who, they do mostly good stuff with a few bad. They do mostly bad stuff with a few good. They do, honestly, just kind of seems like even both. And then there's some people that, like I said, they're kind of just human. They're not one or the other. When you are just doing your thing, how do you, pardon my phrase here because I don't know exactly what this phrase means, but how do you get off calling people's actions satanic when the likelihood that they even know the concept of serving Satan is slim? So you're going to attribute everyone's actions as satanic unless they are intentionally serving God. And then that in of itself tells you when people are serving God and when people are serving self and when they're serving Satan. Intention. But no, these people are willing to just blanketly label people. I couldn't argue this point because the person was too... Most people would understand that there's 3 options, possibly 4. Serving God, serving devil, serving self, and attempting to serve others, but not because of any godly influence. 2 out of 4 are just human. No deity prompting involved. So, why is it that you're either serving God or you're serving the devil? You have no choice in the matter. You're doing one or the other. Because this person was too close-minded to accept logic. The Bible says you cannot serve God and mammon. But this person ignored the fact that the context of that passage was Jesus was talking to people about serving God or serving mammon. Jesus even knows that people don't necessarily serve God or serve mammon. So, if you have a mindset that I'm going to ignore logic, I'm going to ignore common sense, the Bible says this, therefore I'm just going to accept it and condemn everybody in my mind, what does that make you?
A dick.
I'm so glad this video is age restricted. So, here's the thing. When a Christian is closed-minded, they go directly against the Bible. And I know a lot of people are going to say, no, I'm not going against the Bible by being closed-minded. I don't have to be open-minded. And yes, by the way, I'm quoting somebody very specific when I say that. I'm going to leave that person unnamed because I want to respect that person's privacy.
I'm not going to say it.
But here's the thing. The Bible says, love thy neighbor as thyself. Judge not that ye be not judged. If you've already told yourself that every other religion, every other viewpoint other than mine is wrong, you've judged and you're not loving your neighbor as yourself. So you are a hypocrite.
Hypocrite.
And how do you expect anyone to take you and your religion seriously when you can't obey the book you supposedly follow? So, that's one way of explaining this topic. I could give you another one, but I'm not going to because I want this video to stay relatively short. So, hopefully someone out there who sees this video appreciates it, enjoys it. If you do, please give it a like, consider subscribing, and if there's anybody out there who understands where Cass and I are coming from, spiritually speaking, and would like a couple brothers in the religion, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. So I will see you in the next video, and happy trails.
Happy trails.